Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. Thank you for greetings and salutations. And I appreciate all of you for arriving at this wonderful um, show. Me and Courtney, we're going to 3-year follow up to the Egregore project of our Wayne Steiger. It was a beautiful ride, and we want to discuss how Courtney and I first met. Hello, Grandpa Brian, and hello, Chloe, and hello, Seeker of Truth. Thank you all for coming. So Courtney, how are you doing?
I as of right now, I'm doing pretty good. I will say where I am living, lucky it's been either overcast or raining since Easter. And so just the past couple of days, there's actual sunlight, and you know me, I need the sun, the great sun. And so I've been out in the yard. I've been busting my butt, getting rid of lots of overgrowth. And so I personally, me, that is how I kind of work out. Whatever might be going on in the subconscious, conscious, I get to work and I get to, tearing them roots out. Then, so I feel actually really good today. And I got to see the sun again. It's so hard when the sun was gone for way too long. Yeah, I didn't choose to live in Seattle or London for a reason. So I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Yeah, here also every weekend it rains.
Oh.
And today it was overcast, and I said I've got to get my hike out. I've got to get it done.
Mhm.
Um, and so I went out in the sprinkling rain, got back, did a few things around the house, and then about 2 o'clock, sunlight. Like, where'd the sun come from?
Yeah.
And sun was on for maybe about half an hour, 45 minutes, and then went back to overcast again. But
Yeah.
it's just how it is.
Yeah. It's the little flippy floppy of the pole, I think. So, Lucky, how are you feeling about doing this? I'm just curious because I think this is going to be good for everyone who is involved and those who might be new to Stars of Marine Light and Lucky Stone 888 to learn about some stuff out there.
I'm a bit apprehensive, to be honest, because I have forgotten a lot of it. And because of me, I did research. I looked into it. I spent a few hours just reading and getting into it. And then I realized I started remembering more and more. So
Yeah.
I want to present it in the best possible light. And I remember some of the things. I mean, we've lost some friends in the past 3 years. I mean, David
Mhm.
Castle, great guy. Um, it's just, it's interesting. Um,
Yeah, yeah, you told me about David last week. And
yeah.
David was a great human being. And so I think so everybody can know, this is going to be about the Egregore Workshop that R. Wayne Steiger had created and put together for his subscribers and kind of the Soul Tribe family. David was a part of it in many interesting ways, and he was a good human. And so I think moving forward, everybody should know in a lot of ways, we might be talking about things, but we're going to leave a lot of stuff anonymous. Like, we're not going to say names. There's no
Hmm.
need to, because there's some stuff that needs to be aired. I think there was a lot of stuff in the background that only Lucky and I know, which is wild to think, man. Only we know this stuff. By part three of this three-part series, so May 31st, we are bringing in Grandpa Brian 420 because at one point we had to bring him in closer into the project because stuff was going awry in a way.
Hmm.
They had to, so, but in the midst of this, Lucky, I think keeping names out of it, but revealing everything is needed. I think it's good for the Soul Tribe. I think it's good for newcomers. I think it's good for everybody involved. In 3 years, why not? To
Hmm.
review where you and I became friends.
Hmm. Yeah, it was interesting. How do we start? I mean, I could read a little snippet from the because it was called the Soul Tribe Group Creating Workshop. Initially, the Egregore was not mentioned. It was all about connecting as a group on the conscious level with our telepathic abilities, getting a focus. There's a lot of telepathy and getting together and creating a common place. And the goal was connecting telepathically. He used telepathically many times. A group creating workshop, documenting all experiences we have. And the idea was each week was going to be a card. Would either be a circle, a yellow circle, which represents 1, a red cross, which was representing 2, 3 wavy lines, 3, a square, black square, which is 4, and then a 5-sided star, which was green, which would represent 5, of course. And that was the connection, the initial connection, and that was beautiful.
So in the original paperwork, it was only about like creating telepathic connections, developing our psychic abilities more than anything else, is what you're telling me.
Well, that was level 1. Level 2, there's a sentence added, which says groups own egregore, resulting in positive life changes and moving on to others outside of the group. Okay. So egregore got inserted into it on level 2 because there's 2 PDFs.
Right.
The original PDF was about establishing a connection.
Right.
And that's when I came in. I love the idea of a group of people coming together on a positive level.
So Lucky, let's so the first part, and this, everybody, this was a 6-week project, right? Lucky workshop.
It was 6 weeks. Like I said, I have all the notes in front of me. I know it ended on June 5th. Oh, and it started May 1st? No, it can't be that. It's got to be later than that.
Here's the thing. In my memory, so everybody knows, this is why Lucky and I worked so well together when everything kind of fell into our hands. Those who remember like, oh, it's Lucky and me, because I've already, all that documentation that Lucky's looking at right now, that's gone. That's been gone out of my life for a long time, because I don't hold anything. So I just, whatever's in my memory, I roll with. Lucky, on the other hand, is very detailed and keeps the information, and he's very analytical. And so we made an awesome team, and you got to stick through all 3 parts to really get what was going on. So this is how I remember it, Lucky, is that I had my hysterectomy on May 13th of 2022. That I do know. It was my 3rd year anniversary, and that's why we were doing it. I remember I had it that Friday, and I believe we started the project that Sunday. That Sunday morning. So
no, it's May 1st.
Week 1 was May 1st.
Okay. Week 2 was May 8th. Week 3 was May 15th. So that's what happened. You had your surgery, and then a couple days later, I was going to hold on to it and then complete it. And you said, nope, I'm okay. I can do Sunday the 15th.
Okay. Yes. We all were. So going back, this was a workshop to bring people together to develop psychic abilities, especially in telepathic communication. Or the first part. So that was, for a lot of people, I think that was their main objective, definitely. But there was also that element of building the chamber where we would all meet Sunday morning. So Wayne, on Friday night or something, would go into a meditative state, go to this chamber that we all created in a meditative state. And Wayne would release whatever card, right? It was always one of the cards.
Mm-hmm.
He would try to project that out. You and I, then Sunday morning, would also try to project that out. And we are working with people from across the globe.
Mm-hmm.
So we're trying to project it out because it was only you and me that knew what the card was.
Exactly.
Yes, it was well, Wayne, you, and I. So it was mostly let's project it out into this safe environment. And it got a little tricky, and we probably will be talking about that next week about are we in the astral or are we in the ethereal? Where are we? And right. And then what was supposed to then happen was so that was every Sunday morning that people would then do their meditation and try to receive what card it was. By like Thursday, they needed to come back to us in an email and give us what color, what card they thought it was, and all this information. We were collecting it in spreadsheets,
Yes.
and then Wayne would reveal that Friday on his show what the card was that previous Sunday. So that was like the element of just the psychic stuff was we're going to build a place, let's say a chamber, a place where we can all come in and be safe and try to receive the information that's being projected out. Psychic cards. But then by like week 2, don't we like introduce this concept of the egregore?
Like I said, this is detailed. Week 1 is basically getting together. Week 2, oh my God, week 1 is a whole page of just data, basically how to basically do it and what time to do it and what the shapes are. Week 2 is Wayne will set the next keyword and day for the group coming together. Okay, actually, week 1 was only needed to see a color. Week 1 only needed to see a color and then just a keyword and a shape. Oh, no, sorry. Week 1 was to see a keyword and a shape. Week 2 was to introduce a color. And then also will be a focus 5-minute concentration along with a new word and shape.
I bet that's when we were
Yeah, the Egregore was week 3.
Okay,
but yeah.
Week 2 was more of what energy do you want the egregore probably to have? I bet you that was kind of
No, Wayne will send out the next keyword the day before each group coming together along with the shape. We will do a 5 minutes of focus concentration as in week 1 along with a new word and shape. Week 3 was we will extend our focus time to 10 minutes. We will still be using the keyword and shape, but this time we'll be adding a color. It will begin to add what characteristics we want for our egregore in the process. If we connect to a name, write it down, and when you send it with the report. So week 3, which was get things more exciting, we added the egregore.
Okay. Oh, so much stuff was happening.
Yeah, like I said,
my goodness.
This is like I said, this is the second copy. The first copy was much simpler than the second copy. The first one was simple, was basically just ideas about the cards and focus and a common place. Week 2 introduced the egregore. I mean, the version 2, right before we joined, it introduced the egregore. Honestly, I still am amazed that it was only 6 weeks because I swear it was at least 2 months of just sheer struggle. But it was only 6 weeks. It was only a month and another week. It was just amazing.
Yeah. So, Lucky, before because I think we should talk about why we personally chose to kind of step up for a little bit to be the ones to collect data and be a part of this, more in the behind the scenes. But we need to talk about what an egregore is, I think. I mean, there's people here that might not know what that is. I mean, truly.
Oh, do you want me to? Because I'm.
You can. Yeah.
There's a book.
So, go ahead, darling.
There's a book on egregores, which Wayne introduced me to before the project, and I read into it. But what Wayne expressed and what I read in this book were two different things. The author of this, his idea was that we have egregores in all aspects of our lives. Sports teams are egregores. Products. He believes a Coca-Cola symbol is an egregore. He believes that egregores do not need a physical body like a human being, but they can form themselves into any body, so they can be the mascot, like Tony Tiger for Frosted Flakes. That's an egregore. And his connection was an egregore is that a group of people will focus on this being, this symbol, this image, and they will make it real. So someone will draw up a mascot from, let's say, marketing, Fifth Avenue, where they'll grow up. I want this mascot to represent this children's cereal. And they put all their minds into it. Then they put it off into commercials, and they make the commercial so enticing that the children will love it. And in their own minds, they'll empower it. And the thing about egregores is they feed off of our energy, our love, our attention. And they need our attention. So they'll kind of infiltrate themselves into our lives in multiple ways. So we actually kind of crave paying attention to these egregores. I mean, honestly, as a child, Tony the Tiger was something that I loved it, but I hated the cereal. The cereal was terrible.
Right.
But I loved the commercials. And to me, I loved the mascot more than I loved the cereal. And yes, I made my mother buy the cereal, and then it would rot because we would never eat it because it was terrible.
So I think a lot of this came out of multiple shows on Wayne's channel about thought forms.
Yes,
there was a whole lot of dialogue about thought forms. Are we thought forms? Are we just thought forms of someone else? And then it turned into the egregore thing being attached to the telepathic community that was trying to be established in a way. I think when it got to the egregore part, for me personally, because this is not the first time a group of people have tried to do an egregore project or have created egregores. You just spoke about how it's used all the time in marketing and life, and they're everywhere. In my mind, it was more about different esoteric communities that create these things.
Well, no, that's what his belief is. I'm talking about what his belief is.
Yeah.
Versus, and I think he has admitted that the marketing egregores, the mascots, sports teams, they have power, but those egregores are not the ones you get to worry about. And he used those to introduce that, yes, egregores are everywhere. With that, he says that there are groups of people who create egregores, and that's why Jesus can have many faces. He can be different colors, be different nationalities. Santa Claus, different faces, different nationalities. God can be seen as different faces, different nationalities. And the reason he says, because the egregore doesn't care how you see him. He just wants you to see him and love him and give him attention. So those are the ones. The mascots who have one face, those are the ones that are going to be there. But the ones who have multiple faces, they have more power. They're looking. And the thing is, the more power they get, the more they want.
Yeah. It's kind of the concept, too, of, are urban legends actually true? Well, if you tell it enough, things become real. Everything, all is energy. And so for me personally, to maybe try to make it very simple for anyone new to this stuff, there's a thing called a tulpa. That is an energy form that is made by an individual. An egregore is an energy form created by a group of people. So that's the biggest distinctions, is that tulpas can be made by individuals with them not even being aware of it. It's just their energy being released and kind of trapped somewhere and then growing and growing, right? egregores, it's usually very intentional. This is why in week, I'm bringing this up because you just read that in week 3, everybody think of the characteristics you want the egregore to have. This was an energy being created by multiple people. And this was online. This was people from across the globe. It's hilarious, and Seeker of Truth is going to probably think this is funny. I swear to goodness, for weeks, even though I'm collecting all the data, you and I started asking people, where are you located? Because we need to know where you're located. And I swear to goodness, for weeks, I thought Seeker of Truth was out in Europe. I really did. I thought she was in England. She's going to probably laugh at that. We had to start creating all these things for the data because it was such a big project with so many variables, so much going on. And the egregore was, it's interesting because it's like half of the people were focused on what card, what color, what word, more so, when the other half of the group of people, at least those who were giving us information, were more focused on the egregore. So that was up to week 3. What is week 4, 5, and 6?
Let's see. Week 4 became week 4. We will keep just 10 minutes as we do week 3. Begin with focus on new. Focusing now, creating egregore who is now yet complete, along with the keyword. As the creators, we will need to begin to add its essence. If we haven't agreed on a name, begin to see the name, as we should be connecting with each other easier and more frequently on the telepathic level. Week 4 was interesting, I'll tell you that for sure. The group would also begin to sense more purpose with our creation. We may want to discuss what we are sensing to our greater mission and give our egregore a mission. The egregore is becoming more powerful by this day and is eager to begin its mission. Oh, Jesus. Which is to serve the creators. No, I did not read this previously. I just brushed through it. I didn't realize that our egregore is becoming more powerful by this day and is eager to begin its mission, which is to serve its creators. That scares me now.
Well, Lucky, it's because we do know what was going on, which a lot of that is going to be next week, folks. So, stay tuned to Lucky Stone.
Week 4, a lot of.
Well, that's why we were calling Uncle Brian in by week 5. I was like, Brian, I gotta handle some shit, dude. You gotta come and take care of this egregore for me because I'm done. I'm about to. I had to handle some shit.
Oh my God.
So, everyone, blessed beings, if you're a part of the Soul Tribe, this is all in love and appreciation. There was so much that was happening, and that's why we're talking about 3 years later. 3 years later. Because, stuff by week 4 was going on. So, if you're new to any of these concepts, Lucky, let's go into, Lucky, before we even get into 5 and 6 and how this all went about. Lucky, and right now, a big shout out to Grandpa Brian 420. I know he's in the chat. Bless that man, and he's going to be here on May 31st to come into this discussion as well, because there was a call. I called Brian and went, I got to handle some stuff, and I don't even want to deal with this egregore right now. I have to handle some other bigger stuff, which unfortunately for the person, I did handle it.
1 second. Care Bear, no, I'm not Virgo at all. My friends are Virgo. I have a lot of friends who are Virgos. I am Pisces through and through. I am Pisces with Cancer. Is it Sun Pisces, Moon Cancer? That's it. That's how I am. My son's the same. My son is also Moon Cancer, Sun Pisces. But the weird thing is, we get along so well. Pisces are crazy. They're either crazy, or no, they're all crazy. Forget it.
They're all
Yeah,
crazy. They're all
that's
crazy.
it.
And
All Pisces are crazy.
I seem to be surrounded by Pisces and Cancers, so I guess I just roll with you guys really well. So yeah, Pisces. Lucky's a Pisces. I'm a Leo sun. Lucky, why? Okay, when did you say I'm gonna jump into this and help? Like, I'm going to be a part of this backstage with collecting the data, with participating a bit more so. What got you to, when did you decide to do that, and for what reason?
I think somewhere between like 1 or 2 weeks before the project started, I think it was actually 1 week before the project started, Wayne said he had several people who were going to be taking charge of it. And would anyone else like to be, support? And I'm like, hey, I'd love to be support. I don't know much about this. I'd love to support this. I love the Soul Tribe. They were all very positive people. I loved the chat.
Yeah.
I loved the positive energy that he always had. I loved Wayne. Wayne had so much great information, all great positive people. He had some great positive people. Everyone, it was always positive back then. It was a beautiful connection, beautiful people always working together. And I only saw the positive. And I thought this was exciting for a bunch of great people to get connected on the psychic level. And I've always wanted to be connected psychically with a lot of good, positive people.
So that is why you
that.
joined. Yes, that is why
I
you
joined
joined.
because there was such great. I love the potential of this project. I really adored the potential of this project, and even when the Egregore was introduced, I had no idea what an Egregore was. I knew what a tulpa was, but I also knew a tulpa more of a very superficial level. I didn't look much into it. I knew that a person could create a tulpa, and I said, that's interesting, but never really thought too much of it. As the 3 years have gone past, long story short, there was a basically a block away from where I grew up. There's an old house, and there was a substitute teacher who lived there. He was rich, and he was a substitute teacher, and I went there a few times. Nicest guy in the world. And I went through there, never had a problem. Well, years later, about I think 10 years ago, I heard about that house is haunted, and ghost adventures went into there, and they investigated this house. And my friend and I, who also used to go there at a different time, we weren't actually close friends at that point. We went to school together, that were that close friends until after. He said to me, "Yeah, there are stories, but never." His name was Mr. Simmons. Mr. Simmons never experienced any ghosts. He was the nicest guy. He said, "No, the place is haunted. He's just old. Don't worry about it." Never anything experienced. My friend, who also had spiritual abilities, he went there, never felt anything. And then later, one of the investigators, I would listen to her podcast about maybe 4 months ago, and she believes that the hauntings were all tulpas.
They probably were. Yeah.
And what was back in the 1800s, early 1900s, that was when the psychic craze went around, and they invented this Civil War story. And they also invented, Ben Franklin did visit the house, but he went to the house at a time before before the Revolutionary War. But there were stories that Ben Franklin stole papers, and because he stole papers, the person there was so distraught that they hurt themselves. Let's just say that. None of that was true. But the ghost of the Revolutionary War person there, and then a child during the Civil War, were there. And that's what the woman said. Yeah, I researched good and hard after the fact. I cannot base anything. Yes, I saw things. Yes, I heard things. They match the stories. There's no history. And she said, these are tulpas. This is a paranormal investigator.
Yeah.
And I'm like, everything's going full circle. the power that we humans, we can actually
Yes.
create these beings, these spirits.
Yeah.
It was fascinating. So,
Can I use
I
this
mean,
as like a little teaching moment then, Lucky, to explain how that
absolutely, because like
happens?
this all
Okay,
was fascinating to me. This is all recent. Yeah.
yeah. Okay. So Tulpa, like I said, that is an individual creates those. When an egregore, that is a group focus. So most commonly, tulpas are actually negative energy beings because when us humans are releasing positive energy, right, as we're just walking around the house doing dishes, doing whatever, when we're releasing positive energy, it disperses itself throughout. It's a beautiful disbursement of positive, or even when we're just neutral energy disperses out. What happens with tulpas is it could be someone in that house that's very depressed for long periods of time. Someone in the house is very angry for long periods of time. Someone in the house happens also in homes that someone's passing away for a long period of time and it's affecting the energies all around. So when I say negative, it could just be from any reason that it's the negative energy that's being released, sadness, grief, anger, frustration, fear, what have you, depression. It's being released because we release if we're conscious of it or not. And what happens is that negative energy, it doesn't disperse. It's way more dense than light and positive. So it'll get stuck like in a corner in that room. And the more that person sits in that room, angry, upset, what have you, it'll just keep going to that corner. It'll just keep going to that corner. And then it slowly builds and builds and builds. And eventually that tulpa gets big and is feeding off that individual, right? That's its creator. Tulpas can get so big that they end up being poltergeists. They end up being able to get strong enough that they can cut their feed off of their creator and move about the other people in the home and start feeding off of them. They can turn into poltergeists. They can turn into so many things. So yes, Lucky, usually when I am doing a house clearing, I'm running into tulpas more than anything. And what you got to do is then you got to focus the light energy on that negative energy, and depending how big it is for a very long time period, to shrink it down to then it can just dissipate into the rest of the energy that's around. It's the build up of negative. And so yes, many hauntings, many homes that have things, if it's got certain landlines on that location, or it's a hot spot, or there was, like you had mentioned, people were telling stories and whatnot. Like during the spiritualist movement, they unfortunately did a whole lot of things that they didn't need to. That is what a tulpa is, because it's going to be usually solely negative because our positive energy circulates, right? Because of the densities. Now, the egregore, because it's a group, it can be formed in positive, loving, beautiful energy, hence the characteristics. What is interesting, though, is it is still then a part of all the people involved. And us humans are very interesting beings, very complicated, and we all have our own idea as to what positive is. Because for one person, putting a little bit of mischievous energy into an egregore might not be a good thing for another person. And we start running into things like that. And that will be a whole lot of week 2, or the second episode that we're talking about. But I'm sorry, I had to use a little bit of a teaching moment because this is esoteric tea always, regardless of what the topic is. And it brings a bit more of a scope as to, because Lucky, we never even knew how many people were actually participating in the creation of this egregore. We never really knew who was really a part of the whole scheme of things. Made a huge difference, right?
That was the problem.
So Santa Claus, like Lucky would say, Santa Claus is more of an egregore. It's that story. It's that, I mean, that's where we come up with these concepts of like, are urban legends true? Are these stories that we tell over and over and over again, do they become real? And I think, Lucky, you and I touched on that many moons ago, I think around last Halloween, about, do these things become real energy beings based on how often we call them into being by just telling the story? So it can happen. It takes, we, like how you said, Lucky, we are such fascinating, powerful beings, us humans. Just the mind, our minds alone.
Well, that goes back to Mr. Simmons, who literally lived in a house for 25 years with no hauntings whatsoever, but there was haunting before and after him. Because what happened was, in his early 20s, he was 50s later, maybe almost 60, living in the house. He was later in life, up to 70 something. But he lost his wife in his 20s and never got over it. So he remained single, but lived in this old house, which was a historical house. That house has many stories, pre-Revolutionary War, such like that. But he would take in runaways, boys and girls, to live in this mansion. It was it was probably one of the biggest houses in the city, but it was out in the woods. It was kind of, like I said, I lived in a rural area, a very, very rural area, but it was a mansion in woods and everything. And he would take in runaways. They had to get out of their house, get away from their families, whatever. And these kids who were troubled kids, they never caused trouble. So if this place was haunted and this type of fed off negativity, this guy was so positive that it never manifested. But it manifested before him and after him, which I find so interesting, that you've proven the point that, good or bad, these tulpas do feed off the negative energies. It's what feeds them, and if they don't have it, they just kind of go away. And maybe there was some instances, but because of Mr. Simmons being so positive, it dissuaded it. And maybe even if there was a runaway boy or child tulpa, that Mr. Simmons' positive energy placated it and made it more positive, and it never caused any trouble. Who knows? But like I said, there are ghost stories well before this guy, and then there were ghost stories after this guy. And I found that it blew my mind. I'm talking to my friend. My friend says, Dow places are haunted. Don't worry about it. But I said, but they have evidence there. These ghost investigators went in and they have all this evidence. And that's when the woman talked about, she says, yeah, I investigated in 100% tulpa, because that's what she does. She goes in, investigates it with no information, and afterwards goes and her name is Amy Bruni. Amy Bruni. She also, one of the things is she does never anything negative. You never confront the spirits. You don't push them. You're there to be positive. She's a positive, loving person. She says, yeah, most of my investigations are boring. So her show was canceled because most of the time it was just evidence, but nothing scary. The scary ones get a lot of big, ratings.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, she still has a podcast. Really nice woman. I follow her. I actually emailed her a few times. But like I said, it was just blew my mind that this tulpa thing comes in and out of my life, and I'm like, oh wow, this is interesting. Yeah.
And and that also is proof of, I'm always talking about people standing in their authority. That truly is just meaning stand in your mental space in a healthy way, opposed to allowing influences direct your thoughts, feelings, and emotions. You know what I mean? Like, have more authority. And it sounds like, even though his life had various different heartaches, he was standing in his authority and choosing love over fear. And that's what I really mean by that when I talk the way I do. But we're kind of we're so Lucky you decided to join you joined kind of at the tail end, like you said, maybe a week or so before this project was supposed to get started, right?
Literally, I was pulled in 1 week before, and yeah, I mean,
Did your guides kind of guide you and say, hey, maybe you should join? Or this was solely you? Do you even remember? That might be hard to remember.
honestly, my guys were hands off. They were like, "You do this if you want
Okay.
to. Don't worry about it." This is one of the things where my guys are very opinionated. They're very influential. This project, they had no input whatsoever. There was
I
no
remember that
do it.
now.
There was no do it. There was no don't do it. It was just like, it's all in your hands. And it was like, oh, this is awesome. Because honestly, there were times when not having the guys in my head, not having the voices, it's a breath of fresh air. Not having, that person over there, you got to go talk to them. I don't want to talk to people. Go over it,
Yeah.
just say something nice. They need it. Oh, okay, fine. But this wasn't like, yeah, they need your help. It wasn't stay away from it. It was your choice. Do what you want.
I
And
remember, Lucky,
literally,
they actually stayed back with you kind of through the whole thing. Like, what a learning experience for you. I remember that, that they kind
they
of were
were
hands off.
they were not saying, "Hey, this is what an egregore is. This is, if you want, you should probably look into egregores, but it's your choice." And I definitely, their advice was definitely look into the egregore after week 5. They were very adamant that definitely read up after.
Definitely.
If
Mhm.
during this thing, it's your choice. Don't worry about it. And it was like not something I'm used to. Like I
Mhm.
said, they're very powerful. They're very, you should be doing this. You should look into this, read up on this, meditate, 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 meditate. This wasn't, oh, there was one thing is like, yeah, you should 5 to 10 minutes. It says that, keep to that. Don't do more. And it was very much just put in the effort that the project tells you. Don't put too much more. That was the only that was the only advice they gave me.
Oh, well,
And it was,
that's, well, that, I don't know if that really worked out though. I don't know, because we ended up, Lucky, throughout this project, how we became so close is we ended up, you would get off of work in the morning, and some of the recording that we had to do, like the data, we were
yeah,
collecting the data, and so I would have been working on it, and then you would get off in the morning, and I would call you because I'm a sun baby that's up, and I'm da, 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 da. You just got off of work thinking about all this stuff, and we started talking about how to really, in a lot of ways, navigate this project the best way for everyone, um very fast, right? We kind of had, there was so much going on that is really how our relationship really blossomed, was because I think you and I were on the phone talking about this stuff at least 4 times a week, at least, what was going on. So so Lucky, I'm going to express why I joined, and then maybe we can talk a little bit of like what kind of data, like, put into, because we've talked about these are the weeks, this is what we were doing. So what was our jobs in the midst of all this, to, because folks, we're trying to kind of set the stage for those who might be listening that were not there. There's a lot of people that are new to the Soul Tribe, that are new to Lucky Stone 888, new to Stars of Moraine Light. And if you're not, please give a thumbs up and subscribe to both of us. We'd appreciate it. That we're trying to set the stage. The meat and potatoes, as they would say, that is coming, folks. But for a lot of people, we have to set the stage. So, Lucky, you joined. Ah, you're such a good guy. This is why we do make a great duo. You joined, as you said, because you believed in how positive this was going to be, how maybe even groundbreaking and great for everybody. This telepathic project, workshop, as it was referenced to, which you and I continuously called it a project. And when you put the term workshop and the term project, looking at the definitions, it's very interesting. Wayne would call it a workshop. I get how you were excited, and I get that you thought it was this beautiful thing. And I do believe that that is still a possibility for all humans. I joined for the opposite, the opposite reason. My natural psychic ability is telepathy. And so not just the telepathy aspect of it, but I knew there was so much dialogue that had gone over. I mean, it was leading into this project. There had to have been at least 6 shows talking about it. And oftentimes people don't remember what they say, but I do. And it was very interesting. A lot of mixed signals. So I decided to join, I think a week or so before you did, for the exact opposite. I was not thinking this was a great positive thing. I was thinking how dangerous of a situation this could be. I was thinking of how it was turning into what Jeff Doherty used to call sloppy magic.
Oh yeah.
Because I do know what an egregore is. I know the history of egregores. I know how much they fail every time because of human complexities. The way we were going about the telepathic project, it's not that I was so much in a disagreement with it. It was that it was very unclear to all the peoples, in my humble opinion, with having that gift. Like, that is my gift. And to the degree that this is online and there's no way to really measure who all is involved, that in itself, to me, is nothing but dangerous. So that is why I joined. So we have Lucky, this beautiful Pisces, this beautiful dear man who's thinking this is awesome, this has the best potential, and me coming in going, this is sloppy magic. I need to be in the backgrounds to this sound. And I'm not trying to say I was controlling. It was more to have an eye on if there is potential of harm, nip that in the bud so damn fast that it never comes to fruition. That's where I was coming from. So I find that interesting that if that was the reason I joined, you had the reason you joined. And after all the drama that ensued before the project even started, there had been other people that were supposed to be helping with this. All of them fell out except just Lucky and me. It was just us collecting all the data, trying to work with everybody, trying to really explain what was going on here, trying to establish a beginning, middle, and end, right?
Yes.
It was just us. And this is how we became so damn tight, Lucky. We were on the phone almost every morning when you got off work and I'm having my morning coffee, back and forth, because things went haywire well, it went haywire before it even started and affected everything. Right.
It was quite interesting. It was definitely interesting.
It was fascinating. Definitely a learning process for me as a teacher. I know that sounds odd, but to get feedback and actually collect the data the way that we did helped me a lot to understand where people are at in their spiritual development and understanding of things. So that was almost invaluable to me. So the data was mostly spreadsheets at the beginning. It was mostly, what do you think the word was? What was the symbol? What was the color? But it
Yes.
started turning into, eventually, I think definitely by week 3, let's say when the egregore was starting to, like, so week 3 was, okay, word, color, symbol, characteristics you want to add to the egregore, right? Such a pivotal moment in this workshop was week 4, 5, and 6, that we then, you and I, aired a show. And we can fill this in a little bit more next week. You and I had to air a show describing things even more and asking those who were participating to add more to their responses. As in, what are you experiencing outside when you're not in a meditative state? Is this thing visiting you? Or what's all sorts of things? What's been going on in your life, right? And I always found that interesting because as the two collecting this data, I was looking at it as a psychological protection, watching out for things, and abilities. You, I think, were looking at like such the analytical aspect of kind of the numbers in a way of, wow, if we started with 5, just, this is not accurate numbers, but if we start with like 5 people nailing it by week 3, oh my goodness, we have 30, 40 people nailing it. When maybe we should put out there right now, we started with roughly, I think it was like 84 or 86 participants that we were aware of. So that was,
Yes.
Lucky and I were both doing just over 40 emails a week.
Yes, that was the problem. Yes, we were handling multiple people, each responding in their own way.
And then a bunch of people that wanted to keep contacting us to tell us how this was such a bad idea, and just kept
100%.
berating,
Yes.
berating us about how it's, and it's like, back off, dude. That's why I'm here. Yeah, that happened a lot.
Yeah, that is the problem. There was a lot to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the project was, I did not get any input from my guys for the project. I did get input from about different people.
Oh, goodness gracious. Lucky, I think we set the stage pretty well. And I think next week, when we can get into like the real meat and potatoes, it's going to be fascinating. To let everybody know, yes, there were about 80 something that were participating in this. In reality, I think it was more about 300. We just didn't know.
Yes.
At least at the beginning. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Which, there you go. That in itself, that is not a controlled environment. As in, like, if this is kind of an experiment, that is not a controlled environment. Should we talk a bit about what this chamber was? Like, if we talked about thought form egregore, we've kind of talked about the psychic cards, how we collected the data. What was this chamber to you, Lucky?
Well, the chamber initially was supposed to be a place for us all to go, to see, to imagine, so that we could connect and see the symbol together, have a place for us to visit. Unfortunately, it became a house for the egregore. It became a place for the egregore to form. And in hindsight, that was a mistake. It should have just been a place for us to build. Like Wayne has a beach for us to all to go to visit, to experience, and then, okay, the symbol's going to be there over the beach. Great, fantastic. building a place for a spiritual being from, let's just say 80 mindsets. Let's just say 40 mindsets. Hey, let's say 10 mindsets. If 10 people want to build a house for a spiritual being, it's not going to be a pretty house.
It's going to be an interesting gauge. Yeah, it will be.
And that's what happened. We had multiple inputs from different mindsets because we really didn't give a good enough direction on what exactly. We should at least build the walls and foundations. The foundation is like this, the walls are like this, and this is where it's going to live. But again, in hindsight, this is all a mistake. You don't want to build a being.
Well, the chamber,
baggage, the baggage we have, we end up leaving in this house unintentionally. That's what happened.
And a whole slew of other things. That is what I mean by it was. I joined because I could see, wow, this has turned into sloppy magic real fast. Is because there was no actual set target direction or directive or director. Because if you're going to have a chamber like that for everyone to come in, yes, you set the stage for them already. It is not a loosey-goosey, especially when we are probably working with 300 people doing this, not 80. And so, because it can happen. I mean, all of this stuff has been documented through many esoteric cults and groups of individuals for a long time. And like I said, because of human complexities, it's never worked. It's always backfired. I mean, this right here is actually one of... It was the beginning to the end of Madame Blavatsky's community. It was the beginning of the end. Let's say it that way. So there's a lot of things that we can do as far as chamber-wise, and there was no set description, nor did people really understand where is it located. And so that even got even more trickier. Sloppy magic. That's all it is. And if there were only 6 people doing this, well, then it's 6 minds coming together, having meetings, talking about it, designing the layout of this chamber together before they even create it. This was just random. Everybody create a space, and if you want it to have a log cabin, it can have a log cabin. If it has, polar bears, it can have polar bears. It can have whatever you want. I had never even heard of something like that in my entire life until this project. And so for me, it was just big red flags, danger, danger, danger. I should jump on board. Because that is not at all how that should truly go down to be a safe space for everyone. Right? I mean, imagine if somebody, imagine somebody that we're not even aware of, Lucky, because they're not reporting to us, but they are participating. Because here's the thing, this was online. So Wayne's shows would get sometimes thousands of views. The numbers are not adding up.
Yes. That's the truth right there.
I am certain that there were a few definites that were participating right along with us that we had no idea who they were. So now, hypothetically, think about if somebody out there that we don't even know about is not telling us that they're participating, but they're showing up with us every Sunday. They're building this chamber with us. And I don't know, they love clowns. That would be horrifying for anyone who enters the place and maybe sees a clown. Or maybe this and that, because what people think happens is that you create your individual space And that individual space is what you're going to kind of enter into, or at least the visuals. Like it's a group space, but you're only going to see it in your individual way. That is not how that goes. Not when we're working with energy. So even around and inside, outside, everything was very complicated, but it was because there was lack of direction. Even complicated with, and I do have to say, prior to the concept of adding the egregore, there had been a lot of dialogue as to why we need an egregore. The dialogue prior to that was, a lot of it was to serve us in peace, love, and light. But there were pockets of time that it was for protection. It was for, if everything goes to war, we've got this guy. There was a lot of mixed messages. Hence why I jumped on board. Because you're going to have individuals that are going to hang on to one particular message, that this is for protection, and if things go to hell, we got this guy to defend us. You're going to have individuals remember those conversations, and then you're going to have individuals who do want it for prosperity and help and, you know, favor. The messages were so convoluted. Seriously, just danger all over the place.
There's something that I'm not quite sure of, but we were supposed to create this egregore on week 4. The egregore visited you before week 1.
Oh, yeah. No, that's because the dialogue happening prior to it even starting.
But that's the problem. The egregore was already alive.
Yes,
before
because
we
it was
started the project.
introduced to, let's start thinking about this guy and start talking and start adding some stuff prior to even starting. Do you remember people, when all the drama started to ensue? That is definitely for next week, folks. When all the drama started to ensue, there were shows on Friday talking about how others had already been talking to the egregore. It was already starting to be formed, created. And the problem I had is that it did come visit me. The moment I said, I'm going to start I will help backstage, right? I'll help in the background. The moment I said that, I'm working in my front yard. I will never forget it. I'm working in my front yard. It showed up. And I said, what the hell are you doing here? My house is on lockdown. Nothing comes in without my, I have to approve everything. Nothing comes. But it was so ignorant because it's a little baby that doesn't know anything, because everybody's feeding it with no direction. It showed up at my house, and I asked it who it was. What is it? Da, da, da. It has to tell me because I understand in my authority. And I said, you're not supposed to be here. Go back to where you came from. I'll deal with you in a week or 2. Yeah, that's what Lucky, the precursor, not even just the drama, the 2 weeks beforehand of human complexities. I'm talking like 2 months prior to this even starting, the back and forth language and permission of starting things and doing oddball things and free willing nature that was a part of this, and the contradictory reasons as to why was the biggest red flags I've ever seen ever. And then you got to add on top of it, it's online. It's online. I mean, to have that kind of dialogue in a small group of people, maybe 20 people, but you're all under the same roof having these conversations, is very different than thousands of people watching online. I had never witnessed it in my life. I learned so much interesting stuff. I don't think there'd be anyone who knows a lick of anything would ever suggest doing it.
I agree.
And that's why I stepped up, because I do know a lick about something. That's why. That was the only reason, because I went, holy shit. Yeah. But here's the same token. The energies at that time of May into June of 2022, they were so spot on, open, and prime for people to develop their telepathic abilities. There's reasons why I had my hysterectomy on May 13th. There were the energies that were happening universal wise, galactic wise, earth wise, the energies that were opening up for us to truly develop these skills was prime at that time. So we'll get into it next week, but there was a moment that Wayne wanted to pull back and just end it completely. And between just him and I said, no, Wayne, we're going through this. We're going through this, because you can't build it for 3 months talking about it. You can't get hundreds of people already active in it and then drop it. You can't do that, because now that is unknown danger. Well, I didn't say those words to him, but that was my mind. I did say you can't drop this on hundreds of people who will potentially continue on doing the exercise with absolute no guidance or protection. That I did say to him. And I said, and you know, Wayne, that energies right now are not going to be coming around again for people to develop their telepathic gifts. That was when all the drama, so it was like about 2 months of complexity, mixed messages, great idea, great potential, as you said. But then there were 2 weeks of human drama that was influencing everything. And what's funny about that, Lucky, and I know you might not remember this, when I said that to Wayne, I said, no, we're not stopping this train, because the train already left. You know who popped in? It was a Zoom meeting, private Zoom meeting. All of a sudden, after I said that to Wayne, he went, okay. You then came into the meeting. You were running a little bit late, and there had already been someone exited that meeting. And I said that to Wayne, like, the train's already left, man. We can't stop it. Because, oh my God, the danger. I was thinking danger. I did not express that to Wayne, because I was trying to hold on to, I was trying to hold on to always the optimism, right? And then Lucky, you popped in. What an awkward meeting, because then that's when it became just us two. And that's when I met you for the first time, right after Wayne, right after that.
Weird. Someone said that we sent them from the chat, but I didn't see anything that they're saying, so it's fine. Whatever. Here you go. Do you think censoring me from the chat is the answer? You want your stump back? Do you admit it? I don't know what they're talking about, unfortunately. So
who knows what happened in the chat? We do have people that we trust in there, so we'll just.
Yeah, I don't know what they're talking about. So.
Yeah, we'll look at it later. There's people in here. We trust Seeker, we trust Scotty, we trust people that will understand. Right, Scotty just said it was some fool. So thank you, moderators. Thank you for helping us out. So therein lies the human complexities of online workshops and projects. Yeah, Lucky, that was the first time I saw you.
Oh yeah, that was the introduction. Yeah, that was our introduction.
There had already been like all this drama, and you can leave if you need to, and then me telling Wayne this train ain't stopping because it's already going, and then all of a sudden there's Lucky. Never seen this man before. He had no idea what was going on, folks, and we just kept going as if nothing happened, right? as if
it was on.
nothing
It
happened.
there was no way to stop it. That was the problem. It was just one of those things. It was like, yeah,
Yeah,
it is what it is. And
yeah,
it is what it is. And it was just join it, have fun. We're not taking any, we're not even flinching whatsoever. It's your choice. Go for it.
yeah.
Okay, thank
And
you.
I do want to say, because of the energies that were presented, Lucky, I really was optimistic. I was cautious because the millions of red flags, but I will. Everybody knows me. Stars of morning light. I am usually riding on the optimistic side, but I do know how this stuff goes. So it was definitely not my first rodeo.
Yeah,
And
true.
so it was like, okay, I'm going to be here because, yeah, the train was already in motion. It was wild, man. But that was 3 years ago, Lucky. 3 years ago, friend.
It was 3 years ago, and we have changed so much and grown as people, and it's wonderful. We're strong. God forbid, you know. There's always something new to learn, and it taught me so much. But I'm going to join
Yeah.
Robert tonight.
Joining Robert over at Milky Way Soul Tribe. So, Lucky, do you have anything that you want to end tonight on? Because stay tuned, folks, because here at Lucky Stone 88 next Saturday live is part 2, and the middle is always good, folks. The middle is always the most delicious part of every meal. So, Lucky, anything you want to say about where we're leaving things off, or any ideas?
It was exciting potential, and unfortunately, the train sometimes fell off the tracks. We had to push it back on again. That's what the experience was. That's the best way I can experience it. It was interesting. It was a lot. It was a roller coaster. It was a definite roller coaster, and what happened was far bizarre and out of whatever I ever expected. And even though I wasn't happy sometimes, I think I'm a better person from it.
Yeah, totally. I totally agree. I want to say, even though we've presented positives and negatives, and a little bit more negatives, um, for everybody out there that did participate, anyone out there that finds this fascinating, throughout all of the data collecting, there are some very gifted people. There are some
Oh yeah.
beautiful, gifted, talented minds out there that, because telepathy, I do know, is a part of the human future for human, it's part of our future, and it is my gift. I want to say that is still true for everyone. You can develop that. You truly can. And man, Lucky, there were some beautiful minds. There were some unbelievably talented folks in the workshop. And for me, I'll probably end on this every single time we talk about it. That was heartwarming, exciting. That was the light within anything else that was going on.
Yeah, true. It was, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Lucky, you got to get to Roberts tonight, Milky Way Soul Tribe. People over there might be talking in the chat too. And I want to say thank you for everybody coming. Right, Lucky?
Yeah, thank you all for coming. I appreciate it. We had like 17 people at one point. Thank you very much. So go out there, be good to each other. Things come up in life, but you know what? We're all the better for it. So
Yeah.
have a great week, everybody.
Stay tuned next week.
Stay tuned next week for part 2. It's gonna be interesting.